Premier's push for new mining projects. There could be a lot more than just shovels in the ground. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Dig, baby, dig. From Ontario's Ring of Fire to critical minerals in New Brunswick and uranium in Nova Scotia, Canada's premiers are bullish on mining. Premier Ford will be in Ottawa tomorrow to sign a deal with Prime Minister Carney on speeding up development of the Ring of Fire. That's a massive but remote area, 500 kilometers north of Thunder Bay. It contains vast deposits of chromite, nickel, copper, platinum, and critical minerals. Just a few weeks ago, Premier Ford signed a deal with the Martin Falls First Nation to build a road through the region.
The Ring of Fire has one of the largest deposits of critical minerals on the planet. These critical minerals are used in everything from advanced manufacturing and semiconductors, which are essential to powering artificial intelligence, and to mobile phones and cars used by families every day. Countries and businesses around the world are competing for these critical minerals, and Ontario has what the world needs. Unlocking and refining critical minerals here in Ontario will add $22 billion to our economy, create 70,000 new jobs, and protect our province's economy.
In New Brunswick, there are plans for a tungsten mine. It's been in the works for years, and it's one of the projects that's been designated a project in the national interest by the Major Projects Office. It would be an open pit mine, not far from Fredericton, and now the New Brunswick government, along with the federal government, have agreed to one project, one review. This is Dominic LeBlanc's part of the country, the powerful Liberal federal cabinet ministers from northern New Brunswick, and he says his tungsten mine is in the best interests of Canada.
China has a dominant position in the global marketplace for this critical mineral. That's not in Canada's national security interest to be dependent on other countries in a disproportionate way. And you can imagine that's also true for allies in Europe, in the United States, other allies of Canada. So how fortunate that New Brunswick has a project largely ready to go. The geology is done. The challenge is, and this is where our Major Projects Office is working directly with the proponent, with Northcliffe Resources and the Todd Group from New Zealand who own Northcliffe, to figure out the right series of financial instruments necessary to allow an investment decision of hundreds of millions of dollars of private capital to begin, as the Premier said, putting the mine into construction.
This New Brunswick mining project has been subject to a provincial environmental review for the last 10 years and a federal environmental assessment since 2017, yet very little development has happened. LeBlanc is suggesting those days are over and that the federal government wants shovels in the ground because of the situation in the United States.
We ran an election campaign this year with a commitment to Canadians that we would get big projects done quickly. So sitting here with the Premier is an absolute continuation of the mandate Canadians gave the Carney government at the end of April. But it's also true that our economy is facing significant headwinds because of the application of U.S. tariffs on sectors of the economy that are critical to the economic prosperity of the country. So both of those things are true at the same time. It is true, then talk to people in the steel, the automobile, the aluminum, the softwood lumber industry, certain mineral industries. Talk to other business people that are hesitating to make investment decisions while there is such uncertainty around U.S. tariff and trade practices.
In Nova Scotia, there's some debate about Premier Tim Houston's plan to allow for mining of uranium. Tim Houston's PC government lifted Nova Scotia's longtime ban on uranium exploration and mining this past March. Meantime, in Ontario, there are big plans for SMRs, or small modular reactors. This fall, the Nova Scotia government and the Ontario government agreed to work together on the development of those small modular reactors. And Premier Houston hinted that uranium is one of the reasons why.
It's clean, consistent energy. We should. I don't think we're at a point in our province and certainly in our country where we just say no. We're not interested. We're interested. We're interested in a lot of things, and we're interested in nuclear. We also have a lot of uranium in this province. I know that's something that people don't want to talk about, but we have a lot of uranium in this province, and it'll be in demand as the world increasingly turns to nuclear because it's clean and so reliable. These are discussions. We're listening carefully. We're interested.
How does our our uranium resource factor into this MOU?
It doesn't. It doesn't at this time. But the fact is that's a resource that isn't demand in the world. We don't have any active projects for uranium. I don't want to set off any hysteria today, or any kind of crazy headlines or anything. But it's a resource we have. It's not one that there's no active projects. There's no applications for active projects. There's not. But it's still a resource that's here. And in the fullness of time, as nuclear power becomes more in demand, which it is around the world, maybe that's a resource that'll be in demand as well.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Carney will meet with the premiers tomorrow. It's a virtual meeting, although Ontario Premier Doug Ford will be in Ottawa for the Ring of Fire announcement, so he'll be there in person. And after the meeting, there may be questions about comments that the Prime Minister made about the Ontario Premier in a year-end interview with the French CBC. Mark Carney said his government was close to a deal with the Trump administration. He said the two sides were almost there. But he said Trump changed his mind and that it was clearly Doug Ford's fault because of the Premier's decision to run the TV ad featuring Ronald Reagan talking about tariffs. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Well, the political year is coming to an end, albeit with some fireworks and Quebec politics that we'll talk about. But the Prime Minister as well is going to host a virtual meeting with the premiers tomorrow. It was a big year in our politics. We had the election in the spring, and we'll talk now about where things stand a few weeks before we pop the bubbly and call it a year. Andrew Enns is back with us. He's Executive Vice President at Leger. Welcome back.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for another last kick at the can for 2025, I guess.
Yes, it is. And going out in style. Look, Leger is one of the best known polling firms in the country. It's also the preeminent polling firm in the province of Quebec. We do have this breaking news today out of the province of Quebec exactly. That the leader of the Liberal Party in Quebec is Pablo Rodriguez, or should we say was Pablo Rodriguez, the longtime Liberal cabinet minister in Ottawa during the Trudeau years. So he has resigned. According to reports out of Quebec, he has been embroiled in what amounts to a vote buying scandal in order to win the Quebec Liberal leadership. The reason this is so interesting is because the provincial election in Quebec is supposed to happen in October of next year. The Parti Québécois has enjoyed a very healthy lead in that province, even though the appetite for another referendum in Quebec is not strong. This leaves the what has traditionally been the federalist option in Quebec politics very much up in the air now, because the Quebec Liberal Party is going to have an interim leader and then have another leadership race with the clock winding down before an election. What does this mean for Quebec politics? Can anything really stop the PQ from winning that election now?
Well, I'll always say this in terms of Quebec politics, Rob. Just when you think you've got it figured out, it'll do something that you didn't expect. So, it does certainly, as you put it, I think from a federalist perspective, a pretty devastating turn of events the last couple of weeks. I mean, first there was some internal internal, unrest within the party. A chief of staff was abruptly let go, created some problems. And then now, as you touched on, this vote buying fundraising scandal. And honestly, like the unfortunate thing, and maybe some of your listeners, I'm sure some of your listeners will recall, the Quebec Liberal Party had, got caught up in quite a messy scandal, almost a decade ago, and they were really sent to purgatory. And as political parties have to serve their time, and they were coming out of that, and actually in some of our polling, they had gotten within 4 or 5 points of the Parti Québécois and really presenting a viable option for governing. And then this hits, and it's just the recall of sort of the previous scandals and bad behavior of the party has really resonated with voters. Like when the news hit, our polling from a little over a week ago had the Liberals drop 6 points. So obviously the writing was on the wall for Mr. Rodriguez, and he took he's obviously sounds like he's taking the long walk, but where that leaves the party now is really up in the air.
Yeah, it's disarray right now. So we'll be following that with great interest. Let's turn our attention to the federal horse race. You've been in the field. What do the numbers look like as we end the year?
Well, it's interesting in the sense that it feels like, wow, what a year in federal politics. But really, Rob, I think it was sort of like, what a first quarter of the year in federal politics. That's when all the real action seemed to have happened. It was, we had the New Year start with Donald Trump, 51st state. We saw Justin Trudeau depart. We saw Mark Carney come, a federal election that upended what I think most people, this time a year ago were predicting. But all that sort of happened by the mid-April, and it's been pretty steady as it goes now. With one would think that the Conservatives have not had a very good fall, with floor crossings and some internal unrest, but their vote is holding in. Like, Mr. Poilievre's message is, of affordability is still finding a home with a good cross section of voters. And, likewise, I think you've got that Liberal vote is it's still parked there, the low 40s. But I do sense in some of the numbers, some growing impatience about some activity. And you talked about a First Minister's meeting coming up, this week. I think there'll be some pressure to show some, let's get going on some things.
Okay. When we come back, I'll ask you for more on how Canadians are viewing Mark Carney these days and what, as we close out the year, are the top of mind issues for Canadians. Andrew Enns is with us from Leger. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Andrew Enns is with us, Executive Vice President at Leger. Prime Minister Carney won the Liberal leadership in March and then have to keep the job after the election in April. Usually there's a honeymoon period afterward. Andrew, how would you describe our relationship with the Prime Minister these days?
Well, I think it's still pretty good, Rob. Certainly, as you touched on it, he enjoyed a decent little honeymoon after the election. Our polling had him up around 60% approval, in that May-June period after the election. It's dropped a little, but it's still 50% of Canadians would approve, and a little less than 40% disapprove. So it's tempered a little bit, but I think it's still certainly far better than what his predecessor, was experiencing in his final years in office. So there's certainly, I like to say, and I touched on it earlier, where Canadians are starting to get a little impatient, but there's still a general will amongst Canadians to give Mr. Carney the benefit of the doubt to get things done. And one of the big things is obviously that relationship with the U.S. that a lot of voters in that election felt he was the better man to do that. So there's some expectations still on the Prime Minister, but at this stage, Canadians are still willing to give him some time to get some things done.
And what about Mr. Poilievre? What are the views of Mr. Poilievre?
Well, it's been a challenging time for Mr. Poilievre. I think Canadians to some degree are sometimes conflicted with respect to the Conservative leader. I think they like what he has to say. They like his relentless, talking about the affordability and trying to push forward some measures regarding that. But I also think that there's a personal aspect there that I think for a lot of voters, even for some Conservative voters, there's a certain abrasiveness and edginess to them that they don't necessarily like. Sometimes the hyper partisanship. So I think there's Canadians are conflicted. The Conservative Party, as I said earlier, is still holding its vote, but I suggest that, and we see it in our numbers, on a head-to-head, who do you, compare better in terms of best prime minister? Mr. Carney at this stage of the game still performs, quite better than Mr. Poilievre.
Okay. About 2 minutes left. When you ask Canadians, what are the big issues in the country right now? What trends are you seeing?
Well, we're seeing... there's always sort of a consistent kind of top three where healthcare is up there, affordability, and then you get into the housing affordability depending on where you are, and then Trump tariffs / the economy. The healthcare has been trending a bit higher. In part, there's a seasonality to that. A lot of cities and provinces, we're getting into the teeth of flu season, which is putting a lot of stress on our ERs. And so you're seeing some of these headlines popping up with more frequency of long waits and people, leaving ERs, not being seen. And then obviously, I haven't heard much of it lately, but in your province, you keep healthcare kind of on the top of mind with other stuff going on. So it's definitely a 1 or 2 priority, but then affordability. This is a tough time of year for some families that are, it puts extra pressure on budgets because you're trying to add a little extra spending around Christmas, and so the affordability message, and that'll drag into January as the chickens come home to roost in the mail from a busy Christmas season.
We've enjoyed your insight all year, Andrew. Thank you so much for being available for us. Appreciate the time. Merry Christmas. All the best next year.
Thanks, Rob. Merry Christmas to you and the listeners, and look forward to continuing the conversations in 2026.
That's Andrew Enns, Executive Vice President at Leger. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
It's time for our Newsday panel, and our focus today is the auto industry and the vehicles we drive. Tim Dimopoulos is with us. He's the managing director and publisher of Automotive News Canada. Great to hear from you again, Tim. Welcome back.
Hey, Rob.
And Petrina Gentile is with us, award-winning automotive journalist. Hello to you.
Hi, Rob.
Great to hear from you. I would like to start with the big automotive news to end the year has to be what Ford said recently. It's going to take a $19.5 billion write-down. It's killing off several EV models. It's replacing the fully electric F-150 Lightning with a new extended range electric model that uses a gas-powered engine to recharge the battery. But goodness me, every second ad on television is for an F-150 Lightning. Tim, what does this say, this Ford news, about the state of the EV industry as we get close to the end of the year?
Well, it's telling us the industry is resetting hard, both from a consumer demand standpoint and from a manufacturing standpoint. Automakers bet big on demand rising faster than it has. And now the industry sees that that's not plausible. So hybrids and range extenders are probably the practical bridge, not full EVs everywhere at once.
Petrina, what would you say?
Yeah, I agree with Tim. I mean, we've seen the data showing, StatsCan just showed for battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids, it was about 9% in Q3 of 2025 of new car sales. But that's about a 40% drop compared to Q3 of 2024. So the electric vehicle demand is going down, and this is a big blow to Ford. But some of these things didn't make sense to me. I'm the daughter of a farmer and a construction worker who always drove Ford F-150s. I wasn't a big fan of the Lightning, to be honest with you, because it really wasn't great for towing. You tried to tow it, and the range dropped significantly, and it was really priced as a very expensive vehicle. You could get, some that were north of $100,000. So, I understand that the demand has slipped for some of those electric vehicles, and Ford's move to really pivot and follow sort of Toyota's footsteps of focusing on those hybrids.
Okay. Tim, how much of this do you think just might be what I would describe as general economic malaise? People are worried about the economy. These are very expensive vehicles, high-end vehicles. How much of that is involved here, do you think?
A big part of it, affordability, is top of mind for everybody, not only in Canada but globally. EVs are expensive. I mean, the average price of a gas vehicle right now in this country is $63,000, and EVs are way north of that. And until we can get more affordable EV choices on the way, I don't think you'll see an uptick in the market. The good news is there are some more affordable EV models coming. Kia, for instance, announced that its EV4 electric sedan will be priced under $39,000. And we may see a bit of a segment uptick when that comes to the market. And there are other value-priced EVs on the way, like the Chevy Bolt and Nissan Leaf. So if we can see sub $40,000 EVs coming to the market en masse, then we might see a little bit of an uptick in the market. But this is an adjustment for sure, and I think it's an adjustment for the medium and long term.
Petrina, in Ontario, and to a lesser extent in some other provinces, but especially in Ontario, there's been a lot of government money that has gone into the EV supply chain, just given the softness in the industry now. What do you think that means for those investments?
Yeah, again, we're going to see a big drop in those investments. We're seeing, General Motors, I mean, they've stopped production of their electric delivery van at the Cami facility. So bright drop, I mean, that's gone. It affects not only the manufacturers, but the parts manufacturers as well. They're all connected. We're seeing Stellantis moving production of the Jeep Compass from Brampton, Ontario to the U.S. This is all a big blow. General Motors as well, they're laying off at their Factory Zero in Detroit. So this is quite concerning because it has a trickle-down effect, and also into the economy where you have local businesses as well that are surrounding these manufacturing plants that are also going to feel the pinch of less people coming to eat there.
Just finally on EVs, and then we'll move along to some other things after we stop. It's in the news today that our diplomats are in China and they're preparing the Canadian position so that Prime Minister Carney can meet with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping. Tim, we know that one of the big issues for China is our government's 100% tariff on electric cars. Do you think that could you see us lifting that tariff? Are Canadians going to be able to buy a made-in-China electric car anytime soon? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon until we have a larger trade deal with the U.S. ironed out, or at least until we know what the path forward is with the U.S. with some certainty, whether that means, like a lower tariff on goods. But until we get a trade deal signed, I don't think we'll see major moves with an alliance with China on bringing electric vehicles here. You may see some concessions just in terms of, maybe some Chinese manufacturers starting to invest in the supply chain here. Or maybe even talk of building vehicles here eventually. But until we get some certainty with a trade deal, or at least a tariff regime that's permanent moving forward with the U.S., I don't think we'll see any big announcements coming.
All right. When we come back, Petrina mentioned, the Jeep Compass not being made in Brampton. That's being moved to Illinois, I believe, in the United States. General Motors announced it's pausing or is it killing production of that electric vehicle delivery van. In the meantime, you have comments from President Trump. He's making it clear he wants the U.S. to be the dominant auto manufacturing center in North America anyway, if not the entire world. What's the future for Canada's auto industry? We'll talk about that a little bit when we come back. Our Newsday panel on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
We're talking about the auto industry today and the cars we drive. Do we really drive cars anymore? That's one of the things we'll talk about. Tim Dimopoulos, Managing Director, Publisher, Automotive News Canada. Petrina Gentile, award-winning automotive journalist, with us today. Well, this was the year President Trump made it clear he wants the United States to dominate auto manufacturing. A lot was made of comments from Howard Lutnick, his top trade person, said car assembly is going to be in America, and there is nothing Canada can do about it. We've seen Stellantis announce the plans to move production of the Jeep Compass out of the country. Petrina mentioned the Bright Drop electric delivery van. They're not making that anymore. I think that's more of a just demand. There's just no demand for that particular vehicle. But what does the future look like for Canada's auto industry? I mean, Tim, is it bleak? Is that how you would describe it? Just how would you describe it right now?
I wouldn't call it bleak. I'd call it vulnerable. Canada is pretty vulnerable on the final assembly level, which is actually the easiest thing for automakers to move. There's, excess capacity in the U.S. at some plants. So picking up a line and taking it to the U.S. for most of these manufacturers is a fairly, I wouldn't call it straightforward, but easy thing to do. Battery plants and supply chain are more difficult to move, but once assembly leaves, the Canadian supplier ecosystem can weaken pretty quick. But that being said, investments are still being made in the Canadian auto ecosystem. Today, we saw an announcement from Volta Energy Solutions, which is an EV battery component manufacturer in Quebec, and they've secured $200 million in construction funding from its Korean parent to build a battery component factory. And Stellantis, even though they've announced an operational pause at Brampton, has announced a third shift at its Windsor assembly plant for minivans and the Charger muscle car, and that means 1,000 more jobs. So, and even Brampton is on an operational pause. So I think once we see a trade deal, we may see a new line come into Brampton as early as late 2027, but we won't hear anything until a trade deal is ironed out. And again, we also need to remember that Toyota and Honda continue to operate at pretty much at production capacity at their 2 plants in Ontario or 3 plants in Ontario. And there's no signs of any pullbacks from those 2 manufacturers.
What do you think about the future for Canada's auto industry, Petrina?
I think Tim using that word vulnerable is a very good one. I'm maybe not as optimistic. I really am concerned about the industry moving forward. I know Tim mentioned, yes, there's going to be a third line coming back to Windsor, but again, those are people that were laid off previously, so they're just bringing back people that were laid off before to work on the new Dodge Charger and the minivan. So I'm not as optimistic. I think that there's still a lot of uncertainty here, especially when it comes to, we have the stalled negotiations for USMCA, tariffs, and all these other issues that are kind of, creating a storm. But, I guess there is a glimmer of hope with, you have Flavio Volpe with the APMA, really pushing Project Aero, made in Canada technology, electric vehicle that's all made in Canada, and we should be building something like this. Maybe that makes more sense, because now it is very concerning with that move to also towards more gas vehicles as opposed to electric vehicles, and the industry pivoting. So I have probably more concerns than Tim.
Okay. Let's talk about the merchandise that has been moving. These were the best-selling vehicles in Canada, at least so far this year. Ford F-Series, RAV4, Toyota RAV4, GMC Sierra, Chevy Silverado, Honda CR-V, Ram 1500, Nissan Kicks, Nissan Rogue, Hyundai Tucson, Honda Civic, 4 pickup trucks, 5 SUV crossovers, and 1 lonely sedan. Why are these vehicles the top sellers, Petrina? What do you think they have going for them? What is it?
Well, what I'm going to say, which is really nice, is the Toyota RAV4 and the Honda Civic are made in Canada. And I think we really see a push recently, especially since Trump came into power, with this buy Canadian. So I love seeing these vehicles, the Civic and the RAV4 and the Honda CR-V. I mean, it's not the top one, but these are all made in Canada. So I think there's a big push for that. Ford F-150, is a vehicle that's held its top spot for almost 6 decades. And same with Civic. Civic has had the top passenger vehicle for, 26 of the last 28 years. These are very popular vehicles. Civic, affordable, considering this day and age of where we are paying premium for vehicles, affordable for what you get, lots of technology, safe, dependable, good reliability. I think that really sticks out for consumers, and I think that's why, it's the leader of the pack when it comes to small cars.
All right. I'll ask you about that, Tim, but we'll have to wait until we take a break here. I'm Rob Snow. This is the Newsday panel. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
We have some automotive journalists with us today, Tim Dimopoulos and Petrina Gentile. Tim, I mentioned the top 10 best-selling vehicles in Canada. There's 1 sedan on the list. Is that it for the sedan? Stick a fork in the sedan. What would you say?
I don't know if it's a stick a fork in a sedan. I think SUVs and pickup trucks have become far more popular, obviously because of the utility and versatility they bring, but they've also become far more fuel efficient than they have in the past. So there's less of a fuel efficiency quotient between large vehicles and smaller vehicles than there was in the past. They're also far more profitable for automakers. So the automakers tend to invest heavily in promoting them and making these segments fresher and bringing more product into the mix. So they want you to buy them because they're making more money by bringing them to market. But, and this is a big but, sedans are typically more affordable overall, and affordability concerns continue to grow among buyers. Cities are more congested, and I think there's still hope for the sedan segment, especially among young buyers and new Canadians.
Okay,
interesting. And I'll jump in too. I had a chance to speak with an analyst over at Auto Trader, and it was interesting. We were talking about small car sales, and he said the segment has actually seen a big uptick this year, a double-digit increase in passenger car sales year to date, and largely because, as Tim mentioned, the economic conditions. It's so expensive now, so you are seeing some people, going into that more affordable, fuel-efficient segment than we've seen previously. But again, those trucks and SUVs certainly dominate consumer taste. But it's nice to see people kind of swinging into that small car segment. I'm a small car person. I drive a Civic, and I love the affordability and the fuel efficiency, and sometimes that's all you need, really. But manufacturers, as Tim mentioned, make more money when they sell the SUVs and trucks. So they will build more of them.
Okay. We only have about 2 minutes left. Petrina, what was the best new vehicle you drove this year? What was that vehicle that said, I could see myself behind the wheel of this?
The Honda Prelude. So this, if you remember, it was around 25 years ago. Honda is bringing it back. It's bringing it back as a hybrid. A beautiful vehicle to drive. It's so much fun. Good price tag, around $50,000. It's actually cheaper in Canada than it is in the U.S. And a really sporty, nice-looking ride. It's one of the 3 finalists for North American Car of the Year, which will be announced in January. So that was one of my favorites.
A Honda Prelude. I remember when my doctor neighbor bought the very first Honda Prelude in Nova Scotia, and I thought that was the 1980s, and I thought, wow, look at that. And they're bringing it back. Okay, the Honda Prelude. Very good. What about you, Tim? Best new vehicle you drove this year?
That's like asking me who my favorite kid is, Rob, but I'll take a stab at it. 2 hybrids really stuck out for me this year, the 2026 Hyundai Palisade Hybrid and the Honda Civic Hybrid. Both offer really good range. They're both roomy and powerful, and the Palisade in particular is well-priced and well-built. And it starts in the mid-60s, which is actually very good compared to others in that segment. And the range is incredible. You're looking at 800 kilometers plus range on a full tank of gas, so quite something.
Okay. Look, thanks to the both of you. I could talk cars all day. We don't have all day, unfortunately. Really appreciated the time. Thank you so much. All the best in 2026.
Thank you. All the best to
You
you.
Bye-bye. Petrina Gentile, award-winning automotive journalist, along with Tim Dimopoulos, the managing director and publisher of Automotive News Canada. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. Talkback is just ahead, right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today we're calling it Describe Canada. Describe Canada. How would you describe Canada right now in just a few words? How would you describe Canada as 2025 comes to a close? Describe Canada. And this is what we mean. Let's say you were talking to someone who doesn't know much about Canada. How would you describe how Canada's doing to that person? Let's say you were talking to someone who was thinking about moving to Canada from another country. What would you say to them? How would you describe Canada to them? Or, since this is the time of year when people get together with family and friends over the holidays and they talk about things and they talk about the year and they talk about life and they talk about the state of the country and how things are going. How would you say things are going in Canada right now? How would you describe Canada? In just a few words, what would you say? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. For example, would you say, Canada's a great country. Canada is a rich country. Canada, it's the land of opportunity. Canada, it has everything going for it. Canada, it's the greatest country in the world. Is that what you would say? Or would you say something like, Canada has its problems, like every country has its problems, but things are looking up. Situation's getting better. Things are turning around, and the future for Canada looks bright. Yeah, we had some tough times, but Canada is a country that's headed in the right direction. Is that what you would say? Or would you say, oh, these are tough times for Canada. Canada's not in a good place right now. Canada is an expensive place to live. Housing is expensive. Food is expensive. The healthcare system isn't doing well. The education system has problems. Good jobs are harder to come by. Or as a well-known politician used to say, Canada is broken. Canada is broken. Just some examples of the way the conversation could go. You never know when you ask these questions. The conversation could go in an entirely different direction. It all depends on what you have to say when you describe Canada. So let's hear what you have to say about Canada today. Describe Canada to me. 1-833-668-2577. In just a few words, describe Canada and how the country's doing, in your opinion. Bring this up because there have been quite a few reports out this year that measure just how Canada is doing compared to other countries in the world. For example, we recently had the World Happiness Report, and apparently we're not as happy as we used to be as a country. 10 years ago, Canada ranked 5th in the world for happiness in 2015, 5th in the world. Last year, 14th. 14th for happiness. And this year, the country's ranking has dropped even further, down to 18th in the world. 18th in the world for happiness. We're not as happy as we used to be. Another global report is put together by the Fraser Institute and the Cato Institute. It suggests Canada ranks very high when it comes to freedom. We're one of the freest countries in the world. 6th out of 165 countries. We ranked higher for freedom than the United States did. And it was a ranking that has stayed the same for 10 years. So we're a free country. And you could say that beats the alternative, right? But another report, the Global Innovation Index, says we're not as innovative as we once were as a country. We've dropped to 17th in the world, down from 14th, using measures like investment into R&D and scientific output. Switzerland ranked first. Switzerland, the world's most innovative country. Canada, 17th. The United States, 3rd. Canada, 17th. So room for improvement. But we have a good reputation as a country. According to the International Reputation Rankings, according to that report, Canada's tied for first place with Switzerland. And that means Canada scores very well on things like admiration and respect and trust. People admire Canada. People respect Canada. People trust Canada. And while we have a good reputation, another report says we're slipping when it comes to corruption. That's according to Transparency International and its Corruption's Perception Index. See, Canada used to be in the top 10 worldwide of countries perceived as being clean, countries where corruption wasn't really a big problem. We were the top 10 cleanest countries in the world as recently as 2015. We're not in the top 10 anymore. Now we're 14th. The report says corruption in Canada gradually getting worse. So it's kind of a mixed picture, according to these reports. We're not as happy as we used to be. We're not as innovative as we should be. Corruption is more of a concern than it used to be. But we're highly respected, and we have a great reputation. Canada has a great reputation. Does it have a great reputation with you? Describe Canada for us in just a few words. We'll see where the conversation goes today. 1-833-668-2577. Our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. And we hope you will describe Canada. Again, 1-833-668-2577. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Describe Canada. That's what we want you to do today. We'd love to hear from you. In just a few words, describe Canada and how the country is doing as the year comes to an end. Imagine talking to your friends and family. How would you describe how Canada's doing right now? Strong and free, greatest country in the world, land of opportunity. A country that's had some problems, but is generally headed in the right direction. Or you remember Pierre Poilievre used to say Canada's broken. Canada's broken. He doesn't say that as much anymore, but he was saying that, and it was very popular at the time. But what would you say? Describe Canada. Describe Canada. 1-833-668-2577. Let's get some phone calls today. Let's go to Mike is up first today. Mike's in Calgary. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, very good, Mike. Describe Canada, Mike. What's Canada doing?
Squabbling siblings.
Squabbling siblings. Okay. What do you mean by that?
Well, I grew up in Toronto. I live in Calgary now. I've worked all over Canada, and everyone has different opinions and views, and I can believe in all of them. That's fine, but nobody is working together. There's siblings that are just fighting all the time instead of trying to figure out together how to make everything better, right? For their people, their constituents, right? The companies, and just grow the economy. Instead, there's squabbling over small things all the time, right? It's insane. They're all going in different directions.
Okay, so not united. Not united then.
Not united. Not one little bit
united. Okay. And when you say we're squabbling over small things, like what do you mean by that? Like what kind of small things would you say are we squabbling over?
I haven't followed it up enough to be 100% on it, but I would say like the pipeline in because I'm in Alberta, right, would be one of them, right? Instead of like that province really working with us and saying, okay, well, we'll do all of these things, but we want this. They want to help other people. So let's say moving crude from Alberta to BC, there could be extra economic benefits other than the jobs, right? Like the sale. They could work with us to open a refinery in BC and start to lower fuel prices for the people.
Okay. Right. Okay.
That would also create tons of jobs, right? Going eastwards, right? Like Saskatchewan, they want to be able to do probably a whole bunch of other things. I don't really follow them that closely, but they're quite quiet. But they probably want to do a bunch of things with Alberta. You don't hear any of that in the news, right? They're all they're all separate. They're all like doing their own thing. They're not united. They're not together. They're not.
Right. So you'd like more, cooperation, more collaboration among the provinces, that kind of stuff. And stay focused on the big picture. You think there's too much squabbling going on?
Yeah, I think that's a good choice in words. Like, I'm a very conservative person, but I'd still support the Liberals when they do the right thing or good things, or if I believe in them. Even if I don't believe in them all the time, I'd still support it if it's for the greater good of Canada. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yep, gotcha. Very good. Yeah, you've got us off to a great start there, Mike. Squabbling siblings. How would you describe Canada? Squabbling siblings. Look at what's going on right now between Alberta and British Columbia as one example, he says. Very good call, Mike. Thank you. Greg is up next. Hi, Greg. You're on Talkback. Hi, Greg.
I would totally echo your opening comments. Best country in the world by far.
Okay.
Where most Canadians aren't aware of how good we have it. That's the comment I would make. I believe we've become complacent. We've become entitled. I echo Mike's comments about squabbling, which is, in my view, largely a function of provincial jurisdiction, which sets us against each other. But at the same time, we've become lazy. We have no idea how good we have it. We've got a whole bunch of first world problems. 3 billion people on the planet have never seen a clean glass of water in their entire lives. So placing things into context, if we could set aside the squabbling and work together towards building a better Canada. Last thing I'll say is not renewing NAFTA is 100% consistent with Trump's tariff policy. We think we're hurting now. The other 90% of our exports being tariffed are going to be beyond a body blow for this country. So time to wake up, Canada. We've probably got another 6 months in the sunshine before it gets dark, and it's only us that's going to pull it out of that darkness.
Right. Okay. So you think there are storm clouds on the horizon? Fair to say?
Category 5 hurricanes on the horizon. If NAFTA doesn't get renewed, we're basically looking at serving Canadian demand and trying to get offshore to Europe and Asia. And that's going to be a disaster. So, yeah, we better figure out how we're going to meet our own needs and how we're going to grow a local economy across the board.
Okay, but despite that possibility, you still think we're the best country in the world, and most of our problems are what you would call first world problems.
The economy is going to be a massive. Up to this point, it's been the squabbling, to use Mike's word, has been about first world issues. What's on the horizon is a Class 5 hurricane, Category 5 hurricane, where our economy is, we're not even going to be in the same world. And we'll have the biggest problems we've ever had to deal with in our history in the next 18 months.
All right. Thank you very much for your call. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback, midweek edition. Describe Canada. Just a few words. How the country is doing. Imagine talking to your friends or family. I'll be your friend. How would you describe Canada, how it's doing right now? Great country, a country with some problems but going in the right direction, or broken? As a politician once said, Canada's broken. What would you say? Love to hear from you today. Lots of lines available. Wait won't be too long. Give you all the time in the world. 1-833-668-2577 and have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Describe Canada. How would you describe Canada? In the here and now as the year comes to an end, describe Canada. How's it doing in your opinion? Cherry in Halifax. Up next, Cherry. Hi, Cherry.
Hi.
Hi, Cherry.
I'm from the Eastern Shore. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So my name's Sherry. I'm from the Eastern Shore of Nova Scotia. I was born here. I travel a lot. I go down the Caribbean. I'm retired now. I've probably been traveling 20, 25 years, but I didn't realize how important Canada was to me till the time I got stuck on a cruise ship during COVID. And it was absolutely terrifying to think I'm not getting home. And they were closing the country down. And all I could think about was I got to get off this ship in Miami and get my butt to Nova Scotia. And I don't care if I have to swim. And I got from Miami to Montreal. And when we touched down in Montreal and Canada was closing down around us, I never felt more Canadian in my life. And I was born here in Nova Scotia. I retired here in Nova Scotia. I've traveled. I see how other people live. I haven't been to Europe yet. Might get there. I used to go to the States. A lot of my friends and family won't go to the States now because of what's going on. So when I sit here and I follow politics day in, day out, because I'm retired, I can't get over what we're fighting about. Why are we fighting with each other? That's my question.
Okay. Well, some people don't think Canada's going in the right direction. They think Canada could be going in a better direction and doing a lot better than it is. That's why.
I agree there. I agree. But okay. I think that when it comes to politics, we've got our premier down here fighting with certain people, and he shouldn't be. I feel like I'm his mother sometimes. I want to write him and say, stop it. It's ridiculous.
Okay. All right. Who is Tim Houston fighting with that he shouldn't be fighting with?
The indigenous, the reservations, they're growing dope, marijuana.
Right.
They're not growing dope, they're selling marijuana, so it's a big thing down here. It's calming down, but they had letters, firing back and forth. Anyway, and, I was a progressive conservative. I go and vote for who I feel is the best for the country at the time.
Of course.
So, I think Carney's doing okay.
You think Carney's doing okay, but do you think, the question is, do you think the country is doing okay?
Oh, I think it could do better. I feel sorry for I've got a 38-year-old son. Like these kids, I call them kids. They're not kids, but we are the baby boomers that they're shitting on. I hear them shitting on us. I'm probably not allowed to say that word. Sorry.
No, you're not.
Anyway, and we worked.
Too late now.
My husband and I worked 38 years. We were able to buy houses for $10,000.
Yeah.
No, the country's got to fix itself. Well, let's fix it now. It's 2025. Fix it. Okay. Healthcare sucks. You got to be your own advocate for everything.
Right.
My parents recently died. If they didn't have me and my sister, the nurse, and my brother to take care of them, God knows what would have happened to them. And I don't mean that. They spent a lot of time in long-term care homes. They spent time in hospitals, and we were right behind them, watching out for them. But Nova Scotia, my parents couldn't have been treated better. So, I hear the horror stories. My mother was actually in a long-term care home during COVID. Imagine that nightmare.
I know that nightmare.
Yeah.
Let me, we'll just have to wrap it up here.
Okay.
You started the conversations, you were blessed. You felt blessed when you got back to Canada off of that cruise ship.
Absolutely.
You had no interest in going to the United States given what's going on down there. But then
I do.
you rhymed off a litany of problems that you think need to be addressed. So it's a country with its problems, but generally headed in the right direction. Gotcha. Thank you, Sharon. Bye-bye.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Think about how the country is doing right now. And then describe Canada in that context. If you're talking to your friends and family, how do you describe the country right now? Greatest country in the world, land of opportunity, a country with problems, but we're going in the right direction, or is it broken? Is it a country with deep problems? What would you say? Describe the country right now. 1-833-668-2577. 3 lines available. We'd love to hear from you on Talkback today. I'm Rob Snow. Peter's in Halifax. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Rob. Long time no talk to you. How are you been?
Yeah, very good, Peter. Thank you for calling.
Anyways, I see 2 Canadas because I've got I see extreme wealth, and I see where basically I am right now. I'm in a homeless shelter, 66 years old, worked basically all my life. Had a really good pile of savings in gold and silver. COVID hit. Prices tripled. Rent doubled. No work available. I certainly wasn't going to ask for $500 a week. So here I am in a homeless shelter along with a 70-year-old retired woman, a 68-year-old retired woman. They worked all their lives, so did their husbands. Working men. One guy hops in his $350,000 dump truck and goes to work every day. Comes home at night into his homeless shelter. And then when I hear people talk on the phone, or I talk to my parents, or my mother, or others of the boomer generation, those who were born with silver as money, those who were born with no GST on everything they bought, those who were born with no massive amounts of registrations and regulations and permits, and every time you turn around, there's another dime taken out of your pocket. And they're having a great life. They're traveling all over the place. They haven't been to Europe yet. I wish you'd ask some of these guys, did you work for the government all your life? Or the insurance company or a bank? They've done extraordinarily well.
Okay.
I see an Orwellian dystopia.
My
worse
gosh.
than I could ever. Well, listen, I go to I'm retired, right? So I go to the mall downtown.
Mm-hmm.
There are more black-clad security guards than there are shoppers. Every store's closed. Every store's closed. The roads are filled with potholes. We've got bike lanes all over the place. Nobody bikes. You're going to wear your $600 suit and bike to work in Halifax? You're going to take your tools to work in Halifax? Have you seen the health of people? 1 in 4 of our young people are depressed. I'm probably the only one here who isn't on multiple medications. Who's paying for those medications? I've worked all my bloody life for these people, and I made good money. I was a mechanic. Half of my income, and actually, if you do the calculations, it's 90% of your income. It all goes back to taxes. And what did we get for it? Have you seen our standings in the world? They just had this big deal about Silicon's going to rule the world and stuff like that. UK, New Zealand, all the Five Eyes, a few others. Canada, where are they?
Right. Pax Silica.
Right?
Pax Silica you're talking about.
Yeah,
Pax Silica.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can guarantee you we won't even be in the G7 if the G7 still exists.
Okay.
This is the end. This is what I call, excuse me for saying this, nobody will like it. This is the end of the Judeo-Masonic Empire. And as you can see,
oh my gosh.
Well, look at the world has gone crazy. We're picking fights with a nuclear-armed Russia. And who cares who started it? It's 5,000 miles away. It's none of our business. We've got our own problems right here.
Okay.
And why are we supplying bullets to Israel? Like, it's ridiculous.
Okay.
You know, why are
All
we
right,
buying
Peter. No, Peter, I'm going to have to wrap up our conversation there. I wish things were going better for you. It's a very kind of dire view that you have of the country. I appreciate where it comes from, and I really hope that next year is a better year for you. Peter in Halifax, dystopia. Describe Canada, dystopia. Let's go to Red Deer. Dawn is in Red Deer. Hi, Dawn.
Hi, how are you doing?
Very good, Dawn. Thank you.
I'm just in a blizzard, so I'll make it pretty quick.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say diversity is not Canada's strength. I agree with some of your other callers were squabbling siblings. And I'll bring it to a hockey analogy. Diversity on a hockey team never wins championships, whether it's the Stanley Cup or the Super Bowl. It's a team effort. It's not diverse players doing their own things, demanding their own rights like provinces and squabbling. It's a team effort. And Canada right now sure is not playing like a team. Everybody's fighting everybody else, and we're not pulling on the same, tug of war. Like we're pulling all in different directions, whether it's BC, Alberta, Indigenous, Quebec, separatists, all the rest of it. And the only way to move forward as a country is to play like a hockey team. No individual egos, chuck them at the door, and let's all put it aside and make Canada great again. Sorry, I don't want to say make Canada great again. That brings up different connotations.
Right. I understand. You think we've slipped a little bit. And it's because of the lack of unity in the country. It's interesting. You're the second person to bring that up. Dawn, I will let you go. I realize the weather's probably not great where you are. And we will, in fact, for our listeners in Calgary, I want to get everybody up to date because we've got an Alberta Clipper that's rolling through that part of the country. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Asking you to describe Canada. How is the country doing as the year comes to an end? Describe Canada. 1-833-668-2577 to Waterloo for the first time today. Alex is in Waterloo. Hi, Alex.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Alex.
Unfortunately, everyone I talk to, I'm pushing 60 years old. I've been in the same area my whole life, pretty much, except for a few years here and there. And everyone I talk to, young and old, is of the same mind. We're not happy. We're not happy with the direction of the country. We're not happy with the expenses of the country. We're not happy with the mass immigration from the country. Nobody, young and old, nobody I know is happy. Nobody. And that's the first time in a long time I can say that. And I'll tell you something else. One of the things that really, really upsets people is seeing Justin Trudeau flaunting about with some movie star or whatever she is after we think he's destroyed the country. And it's really, really aggravating. But I'm just saying, like, nobody's happy. I mean, nobody's happy. There may be a few that I haven't talked to, but how do you sustain a country like that? Like, what's the answer to that when the government just will not listen to the majority of the people?
So, what is at the heart of this unhappiness?
Well, I would say two major things. One is the pricing, how expensive everything's become. Like, it's crazy expensive now. And two is the massive immigration. It's massive. It's no one's ever seen anything like it. the teenage kids can't get a job in the summer, and that's just a fact. The stuff, they used to work at Tim Hortons and McDonald's and all that. Well, they can't get those jobs.
Right.
And people are like, well, it's all foreigners. And they say, well,
so immigration, right? That's a big issue.
I would say the top two is immigration and finance. When you go to the grocery store,
immigration and the cost of living, right? The cost of living,
that's
right?
Correct. Yeah,
housing, rent, food prices, sure, yeah.
And that's not sustainable, I don't think, in a country. You have that many people. And when I say unhappy, I mean really ticked off. Like really ticked off talking about moving. I mean, I'm talking about moving. Some people are talking about if it's not even fixable, is it a civil war? People are talking about moving to Alberta and voting for separate. I mean, people are really, really, really upset. And I don't think our political elite.
Well, you're expressing, that goes beyond upset, anger. You're describing people are angry at the state of the country.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
sure.
like very, 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 very angry. And because it doesn't matter what you do, who you vote for, nothing seems to change. It just gets worse. They don't seem to listen. Like every poll, the majority of Canadians think immigration levels are way too high.
Yeah, well,
and yet what does the government do? They raise them.
Well, the government is moving, I think, to try and rein that in. I think that's what I hear from this government.
And they'll just have small deficits.
Right. Okay. So, that's just a lack of belief. No, you think the government will follow through, right?
If someone lies to you on a regular basis, why would you believe a word they say?
Okay. There was some numbers out today. There were some numbers out today on Canada's population. Canada's population actually dropped for the first time since the pandemic, according to new numbers from StatsCan. 76,000. Population went down by 76,000 between July and October.
Yeah,
but a decrease largely attributed to immigration policy. So they are trying to rein it in.
Right, but so for example, and this number's kicked around a lot. I think by early next year there'll be over 5 million people in this country that have overstayed their visas, whether it's work or student.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that many. I think it's about 3 million.
Well, that's the number I'm hearing. Right.
Okay.
I think the Conservatives have said that number too. Maybe it's not 5 million, but it's a lot.
And maybe it's that the government is going to have a big question on its hands. Are they going to chase these people down and deport them? I mean, there's been talk of an amnesty. Are they going to give them all amnesty and just let them stay here?
That's what they're going to do. But look, if you want to fix the housing crisis, right? Well, if there's 5 million people that shouldn't be here, kick them out. What's going to happen to the housing crisis? It'll disappear. If the prices of everything is so expensive, well, you'll fix a lot of stuff just by doing that one thing. And I'm telling you, everyone I talk to, this is what we're talking about.
That's what you're talking about, right? Okay, I got you, Alex. Anger, upset, frustration, unhappiness, and immigration is a big reason. And the cost of living is the other big reason. Thank you. Describing Canada. 1-833-668-2577. Really bad weather and terrible driving conditions for our listeners in the Calgary area today. We're going to bring you right up to date on everything you need to know about that. And then back to our callers on Talkback today for our listeners in Kitchener and in Halifax, of course. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Southern Alberta, Linda is going to describe Canada for us and how the country's doing. Hi, Linda.
Hello.
Hi, Linda.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a Western thing, but yeah, I'm of the mind that we're siblings and we're fighting and we're only connected in last name only.
Okay.
Because I've always seen that. Case in point, when Carney was saying something about giving Alberta, pipeline away. What does Quebec do? Whine right away and say, what are you giving us, regardless of how much they've already gotten? So yeah, it seems to me that's the way it is. As soon as somebody else might be getting a little bit, Down east, they start crying. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, who knows when that pipeline will be built or if it'll ever be
it probably
built.
never will.
You know, Quebec.
That's just
I would say it was just a week later that they announced they're going to buy $750 million worth of aircraft for Bombardier. So that'll be, you know, a nice gift for Quebec.
Yeah. So
right
and that's why I think in the West you'll find that they're saying, no, we're a family that's never been connected. We're only connected by last name. Otherwise, we're just siblings who fight, and the first and the adopted one are always the ones that scream the most. Okay. And then they want the younger one.
Sorry, Linda. Sorry. Oh, did we lose Linda? I didn't mean to interrupt her like that. Paul in Cambridge, Ontario. Let's go to Paul. The view from Cambridge today. Hi, Paul. Are you with me, Paul? No, Paul. Okay, we'll just put that on hold and we'll circle back there if he's still there. Let's go to Trent up next. Hi, Trent.
Hey, how you doing today?
Yeah, very good. Trent, how would you describe Canada for us?
Well, as someone born and raised in Calgary and, you know, in the trades for the last 30 years in Calgary, I've noticed a massive difference. And as far as the feeling goes, it's in my industry, it's a sense of, you know, there's too many groups of people coming in doing the work which is needed to be done, but they're not used to the prices that the economy is based on in Calgary. So they go in and lowball everything. They get all the work, and then they just hire their friends and family. And, you know, if you look online right now, there's about 40 framing jobs in Calgary, and there's not one of the listings with a white name, so to speak. So that's one end of things. And the other end of things that I personally notice that bugs me the most is the fact that we got an influx of 30 to 40-year-olds in Canada, and no matter their past, no matter their history, they got a fresh start in Canada. So if they had credit problems in the past, or they had, you know, people chasing them for money, it didn't matter.
Okay, I don't know anything about that. But,
well,
right.
As a Canadian, I know if I was given a fresh start at 30 years old,
yeah,
like here, you got new credit, you got new everything.
Right.
That affects people, right? It affects people when they're in Cross Iron Mall, and it's 90% of one group, and they're all carrying Gucci bags, and people are starting to get angry, and for the wrong reasons. Like, my best friend's Indian. I hire Indians at my work. My son's best friend
Right.
is
But
Indian.
again, you're coming back to immigration. You think immigration is a problem and it needs to be addressed, right?
Factors. And
Yeah.
the biggest factor is the Liberal government, because the proof is in the pudding.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. We're just tight on time, and we've got this terrible weather in the West that we want to keep an eye on, so we get the news on time here. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. Thanks for joining us today. Describe Canada. That's what we want you to do today in just a few words. Describe Canada. Think about how the country is going as the year comes to an end. Now, if you're talking to your friends and family, how do you describe Canada right now? One of the reasons we wanted to get into this happiness report, it is kind of interesting, because you would think if a country's doing well, then its people will generally be happy. But as a country, we've been happier. Let's just put it that way. We've been a lot happier. In fact, it would seem we were a lot happier before Justin Trudeau became prime minister. That's obvious. That's when the country as a whole started to become a lot less happy, because the decline, and you can map it out, you could chart it. The decline started in 2015. This is an annual report that they do. In 2015, Canada was the 5th happiest country in the world. And now we're 18th. And the report says we're one of the largest losers in happiness. And when you go digging for the reasons and you read through the report says there are many reasons for that, affordability being a huge part of it. And I'm not surprised to read that. You're probably not surprised to hear that. Given every time a poll is done, Canadians say the cost of living is the number one issue in the country, and it's not even close, but also on the list, declining trust in institutions, uneven social support. Canada, one of the countries with the sharpest declines in happiness in the whole world, and it's a long-term trend. From 5th in 2015 to 7th to 9th to 11th by 2020. So from 5th to 11th in 5 years, then 14th, then 15th by 2022, now 18th. 18th. It says trust is an issue. We talked about trust a few weeks ago. We did an entire talkback just about trust. Regular listeners may remember that show. And it says we don't trust each other as much as we used to. We don't trust our institutions, like our governments, as much as we used to. You know, and to Peter's point, who called from Halifax, from a Halifax homeless shelter, we don't view the country as being as fair as it used to be. And society is not as cohesive as it used to be. Our first caller today, Mike, said we're like squabbling siblings. Well, that goes to social cohesiveness. And we have had so many news reports recently about the decline in happiness and how it's particularly noticeable about, for younger Canadians between the ages of 15 to 30. They're the most unhappy of all. That's one of the reports that's been out this year, was out in the last few days, comparing Canada to other countries around the world. And it is rather glaring, I must say, the noticeable decline in happiness in Canada during the Trudeau years. But back to our original call to action, describe Canada. What would you say? How would you describe Canada in just a few words? To Calgary. Justin is in Calgary. Hello, Justin. Surviving the weather.
Hello, Rob. How you doing today?
Good to hear from you. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to hear you too. First of all, a big heads up to Peter. It just sounds like a terrible situation. Guy works his whole life, busts his butt in order to provide for him and his, and now he's in a homeless shelter. It's heartbreaking. It really is. So, Peter, if you're still listening, hang in there, buddy. It can only get better. Way I feel about Canada, I don't feel it's broken. I'd rather quote the Rolling Stones and say it's shattered. There's just too many people across too large of an area. Another way to put it is Canada's too big for one government, is the way I feel.
Okay.
I don't feel like everyone's voice is being heard simply because you can't listen to that many people across that amount of area. Now, I just did a little digging around to find out, how come we lost love and compassion for each other a little bit. I really feel for the Indigenous people. There's like 3,300 different tribes, I guess you'd say, or reservations in the country.
Nations, nations, I think, yeah.
Nations, yeah. Okay. Yeah. And between them, there's about 200 bands of governments that represent these people. Now, especially up in northern BC, there is just a great big handful of people who, the word of the day seems to be squabble. And it's really against each other. One person wants one thing, another band wants another, and they never really sit at the table together. They really seem to be sitting across the table from certain areas of government separately instead of one unit. That being said, it's because the country is just too large to be governed by one body. And, I hate to say it, I'm a proud Albertan. I used to be a proud Canadian, but I really feel like everyone's being taken advantage of at this point. One of your callers mentioned about the lack of gratitude, and we've lost touch with the things that we have, and how good we have it. That being said, you're you only know what you're used to knowing, right? I mean, you can't compare ourselves to, say, Syria, right? Those people understand what's going on in their country. We don't. But I don't think it's in our best interest to worry about Syria. I think it's in our best interest to worry about Canada. And I don't have an answer. I don't want to split government, but
right.
I feel like, especially in the West, people feel silenced. And I feel a reason for that is when we were booming out here in the West, especially in Alberta, we got guys with grade 10 educations, grade 9 educations. They're making $150,000 a year after they dropped out of school. And I think that, really upset a lot of who spent 8 years in post-secondary school and aren't even making $80,000. And a lot of these people are in government. And I think it pokes them right in the belly. Just think about that. Think, geez,
interesting.
Why did I go and spend all this money on my education? And this guy didn't have to. He's got a house at 19 years old, and I might not have a house until I'm 35. Am I making any sense there, Rob? You know what I mean?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for your call. We'll be right back. Hour number 2 of Talkback underway. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Now we're asking you to describe Canada. How is the country doing at the end of 2025? In your opinion, describe Canada. It's so interesting. Justin's comments recently, the younger, say, well-educated professional who looks at the 20-something who dropped out of high school to go, say, work in the oil sands of Alberta, and the guy who goes and works in the oil sands in Alberta is making $150,000, and the world is his oyster, and has a new car and a nice house. And meantime, the person with maybe 1 or 2 university degrees is struggling to even reach $100,000 a year. And it fuels resentment among that particular cohort and how the country's not working for me. And as Justin was saying that, I was reminded of what they call the Mandani effect. And we talked about Zoran Mandani, who was recently elected as mayor of New York City. And this is where he drew a lot of his support from: younger, highly educated professionals and students who really resonated with his message, which at its core was an affordability message, right? What am I going to do for you? I'm going to freeze your rent. I'm going to give you free transit. I'm going to give you free childcare, all of these things. And that really energized the progressive left in at least New York City politics. Is there something happening here in Canada as well? I don't know. We do know that there are certain progressive politicians, like, say, Nenshi in Alberta, who are kind of studying the Mandani effect and trying to make headway with that similar kind of message to a similar kind of cohort. 1-833-668-2577. Khalil, am I saying that right today? Khalil?
Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you for calling.
So, Rob, please give me a little bit time so that I can express this. Like, the people who are scapegoating immigrants, I just wanted to let you know, your government is failing you. You had a bad choices in your past. And, if you made a bad choices, bad leadership, bad government, bad governance, so don't blame immigrants, because immigrants are the most hardworking people. I've been working 2 jobs since 2008. Since then, I arrived in Canada. I've been doing 2 jobs. My wife is doing job. We're paying our taxes. We're paying the mortgages. Just check on your banks how much profit they are making from you guys. So don't blame us like immigrants and look us bad as a scapegoat, because your governments are not doing enough for you. If the youngs in this country, even including my kids, if they are unhappy, they are unhappy because of this bad governance and bad governments and the bad leadership. And
but let me ask you if I could just interrupt there. Okay, I'll give you lots of time. Don't worry. as an immigrant, you came here in 2008, right? And you're working hard,
sir.
paying taxes, paying the mortgage, all of that. Appreciate that. So the Canadian success story. But how wise was it to bring in 3 million people into the country in such a short period of time? Do you think that was wise for the government to do that? Because that's what it did.
But again, who voted for Justin Trudeau for 3 times? Who voted? The people of all these people, right? We never voted for it. I never voted for Justin Trudeau. But there's some other people, because if they made a bad choices, they can't put it on one community or the other community. That is absolutely wrong. So they should change the lenses, first of all. When we came here, we came with the degrees and certifications, and we came with a lot of experience, and that's why we are surviving. We're surviving because we learned those techniques, how to survive even in a bad time. So in a bad time, because we learned those things already, the countries we came from. And that's why we're doing even a blue collar jobs. We don't care about what jobs we have to do, and we still have to survive. And if you check on the for example, the housing debts. So these banks are making billions of dollars from us on the interest charges, and all of these credit card companies. Check their even profit this year. They make billions of dollars from the Canadians, and they don't understand who is actually the problem is. Immigrants are not the problems. The problem is your leadership and your bad government and the bad governors and your choice. If you pick and choose the wrong leadership, if you pick and choose the wrong, and look, provinces versus the federal government versus provinces, is it the immigrants' fault? Do you think if you're not building up your resources, or not putting the pipelines and fighting Tom and Jerry, so that is your fault. Don't put it on the immigrants. Don't put every blame on the immigrants. Yes, we are with you. We empathize you. We feel your pain, because we've been through all of these problems in our life, one way or the other. But we learned it harder way, and we worked so hard. And look how much bills, we know that lab laws, look at the lab laws, they're still making profit. And how much profit they are making? They are making profit on our groceries, right?
Well, they would say they're making pennies on the dollar, 4 cents, 3 cents on the dollar. That's the grocery store's claim. Okay.
$60 million in the last quarter.
Yeah, sure. But what were the revenues? It's still pennies on the dollar. All the numbers are big. I get that. Okay. I don't know if people are you say, callers are scapegoating immigrants. Maybe there's an undertone of that. I think they're angry at the government for mishandling the immigration file. I think that's where the anger comes from. And even the government, even this prime minister admits immigration was out of control. And we have these new numbers out today. They're trying to rein it in. The population went down, according to the latest numbers from StatsCan, largely because they've cut back on immigration. Got to run. Thank you. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We are asking you again to describe Canada. How's the country doing as the year comes to a close? Pat in Kitchener. Hello, Pat.
Hey, Rob, can you hear me?
Hi, Pat. Yeah, I hear you just fine, Pat. Go ahead.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
great.
Go ahead.
So I think Canada is an absolutely fantastic country, and still a country where an individual can move up the social economic ladder within one generation. And there's not a lot of countries in the world that you can say that about. And the evidence there is the actual amount of people that want to come to our country. So we're doing fantastic. Your last caller was directionally correct in that it's not immigrants that are the issue. Immigrants are coming to Canada in search of opportunity. The problem that we have, and again, although we're a great country, I don't think we're headed in the right direction. I think we're a great country because of the policies and the politicians we've had collectively over the last 100 to 150 years. The foundation of Canada makes it a great country. The politicians that we had over the last, let's say, 10, 15 years really created instances where, again, for the last 5 years, I don't think there's a week that goes by that I don't hear on the radio a conversation about affordability, about large food bank lines, about deaths of despair, about homelessness. Like, this is the environment that we are operating in now, an environment where we're not doing great as a country. And so I almost want to encourage you and individuals like Mike Farwell, when you guys are posing these questions to the public, again, just over half of Canadians voted for leftist governments for the last 10, 15 years. What I want to know is, in the context that Canada, again, is operating under an environment of this affordability crisis, why are Canadians still voting for leftist governments? Because, again, it's these governments that are running on policies that are creating unaffordability, and then to unaffordability, they have to let a lot of immigrants come into the country because they bring in money. And the immigrants are being brought into the country to actually mask our low GDP and productivity growth. So the immigrants are the scapegoat. And so, again,
right.
I would,
you're asking, given everything that we see around us in a cost of living crisis and lines at food banks and housing affordability issues and the situation with the immigration system, why would, if there was an election today, why would more than half of the country say vote for the so-called progressive option, right? You're saying that. Why?
Correct.
Why would you continue to do that? Fair enough. You could turn that around. You could turn that around and say, what is it with the conservative option that so many people rejected? Could you not? All right, Pat. Thank you. Be right back after the latest breaking news. And for our friends in the Calgary area, the latest on the traffic and the weather. A wild day there today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we've been asking you to describe Canada, the year coming to a close. If you're talking to your friends and family, how do you describe Canada right now? Strong and free, greatest country in the world, the land of opportunity. Or a country that has its problems, but generally heading in the right direction, or broken. Pierre Pauli have made a lot of political hay with that. Canada is broken. Just what would you say? Describe Canada for us. 1-833-668-2577. Reza in Calgary today. Hi, Reza.
Hi, how
Reza?
are you?
Yeah, very
Hello?
good. Good to hear from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in my opinion, data tells the whole story where we are. Over the last 10 years, our GDP per person has been flat, no growth, but inflation, we had inflation. So once we can't maintain the same kind of lifestyle, people become unhappy, then we go after immigration and other things. Now, why this happened? I think it goes back to government policy, which economy was not under top priority, and this is the consequence. I think it's data tells the story. That's my opinion. Are we broke? I don't think so. We have so much potential in this country. We can turn around and do better, regardless of parties and stuff. We need good policies. Parties are irrelevant. We need good policy, and I hope people pay attention, and governments, local, provincial, in all levels, we need it. We really desperately need it, but we are not broke. I have a lot of hope in this land and this country and its people.
But you're saying the data tells the story, and the data says the country hasn't been doing well when you look at the data.
Of course, but that doesn't mean we are broke.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
No. Broken. I mean, broken doesn't mean we're broken. Yeah. broken.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we are
okay.
not performing well, and there's a reason. The economy was not a top priority for Liberal governments during Justin Trudeau, and we are paying the price. Very simple.
Very simple. All right, Reza, thank you. The data tells the story. He says, Wayne in Red Deer today. Hello, Wayne.
Hello there. Thanks for taking my call. I just got to comment on a couple of things. First of all, I've never heard anybody blame immigrants. You know, I understand the immigration policy impacts Canada. I understand the government wants the revenue for tax base, but how it impacts us, it depends on the labor force coming in, and I think that's what really makes a negative impact on a lot of non-immigration people. Another gentleman earlier on said that our country is too big to govern, and, you know, real quick remark to that, I think that's what makes our country. That's what MPs are for, and it's not a perfect system, but I'll tell you, I am the biggest Canadian possible. I feel that Trump has caused two issues in Canada. Number one, I think we still have the best pride of any other country in the world. I still believe that firmly because of him and what he's done to us in the last year. But I also believe that the reason our numbers have dropped is because of Trump again with the results of the tariffs, and people are feeling the pinch. It's hurting us economically. We're spending more money. There's not as much money. You know, we used to do $2 billion a day over the border. That's down 30-40%. So, and that's going to have a huge impact on us. But, you know, I tell you, I have Canada.
I don't know if I would totally buy into that. If I could just maybe offer a bit of a rebuttal, Wayne, if you don't mind. You know, the situation with sky high rent, for example, unaffordable rent. That was a problem long before Trump came along. The situation with food inflation, that was a situation before Trump started talking about tariffs and the prices at the grocery store, the lines at the food bank. Trump didn't cause the lines at the food bank. A lot of these issues were issues before Trump started talking about the 51st state and all of that stuff.
I agree with you. Let me re-clarify. I think that what he's done to us has made it more apparent to a lot of people who don't typically follow, you know, our GPA, all of the different measurements and logistics and analytics about our country. So yes, we're not, you know, we can be doing a lot better financially. I totally understand that. I just think that people are becoming more aware of it because of Trump. I think might have been a better statement than saying that he's caused it all.
Okay.
But I think he's definitely impacted it. But you know what? I love the country. I think that, you know what? That's what this country is all about. When you take different calls from different people, from different ethnic groups, different areas. I'm from the East, been out West for 35 years, and yet it's funny seeing the difference in opinions. But, you know, on Facebook, I see people putting down every conservative possible, and yet in the West, it's all putting down the Liberal Party. So, you know, there's definitely division there, but still love the country, and I'll never badmouth it. I'll be the biggest proponent and the biggest person putting down some of our policies. But I just love the country, and I think we're blessed to be here.
All right. Well said. Thank you. Thank you. Hopeful to the end. I am going to stop here because I want to make sure for our listeners in the Calgary and surrounding area, they're having a heck of a day with an Alberta clipper that's blowing through, and it's causing all kinds of traffic and weather problems. So why don't we stop a bit early so we can bring our listeners in that area right up to date on everything that's going on. Lots of cars sliding off the roads and transit problems and the like. So let's get an update there. And we'll be right back. To our listeners in Alberta and Southern Ontario and Atlantic Canada on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Describe Canada. Describe Canada in just a few words. Angela, up next. Hi, Angela. Thanks for waiting. You're on the line.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I listen to your show regularly, and I think part of the problem is, number one, everything's way too expensive in Canada. Superstores getting rid of Canadian products, bringing in Mexico and U.S. products. The BC farmers are complaining that the stores aren't buying their product. So, yes, expense is number one. Number two is immigration. And people have to quit calling in and thinking we're discriminating against certain colors. Immigration is all colors. They were brought in too quickly, and there are no jobs. I'm in Calgary, and I have to drive by a high school, and they're jaywalking all the time, and I counted 42 students. 2 were white. All the rest were other colors. So I think immigration has to slow down. I think people have to get out and vote and pay attention to what the parties are offering Canadians. You had a caller on a couple of days ago where he said, my grandfather voted PC, my dad voted PC, I'm voting PC.
Sure. Well, that happens, yeah.
Yeah, that happens. But where is that making our country better?
Well, I understand that, but you're also calling from Alberta, where they elected the PCs for what, 42 years in a row? Something like that?
Yeah, not me.
So that's a thing in your province too, right?
Right. Absolutely. And I'm talking about the caller was from Alberta. But I mean, they have to grow up. They have to open their eyes. They have to make the difference. We have the opportunity to make the difference, to voice our opinion and hope for the best. And if the party we voted in isn't doing the best, well, we can recall them apparently. So 29 years ago, I was in Australia, met a wonderful Irish couple who said, oh, I wish I could visit Canada. I said, come on down, come and visit Canada. And they said, we can't. It's too expensive. So that's 29 years ago. People can't come. And this was just a working person. His wife was a teacher in Ireland, and he was in construction. And they could afford to go to Australia, but they said they would never be able to afford to come to Canada. That's 29 years ago. So this is just something we have become too complacent with. We've allowed it to happen to get to this point, and we can make the change.
All right, Angela, thank you for having your say today. Let's go to back to Kitchener today. Ernie is in Kitchener. Hi, Ernie.
Mike. Oh, sorry. Hey, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Ernie. Yeah, good to hear from you today. Go ahead.
Quick note, by the way, I did change my pick the Broncos after listening on Friday last week, and thank you for that. But quick points here on what's going on. As far as I totally feel Canada's broken, and I don't want to feel this way. I really don't. But when we look at everything that's going on, the crime, it seems like everything is going into the terms of the defendant, the legal homeowner defense, the things that happen to the Canadians that are living here with criminals breaking in. The homeowner is more worried about getting in trouble than the criminal is. We have court cases with illegals that are here, and we're dropping their sentence so they don't get deported. Meanwhile, sorry, they're not here illegally, but they're here breaking sentences, and we're dropping their charges so they don't get deported back home. I mean, we have record food bank lines. The homelessness is out of control. The cost of living, everyone's talking about the cost of living, how everything is so expensive. And the dreams of getting a house. And I don't want to be, I sound like a Debbie Downer here, and I hate to be that way. I don't want to sound like that at all. But it definitely sounds like who am I blaming this on? I'm blaming the last 10 years of the government, Rob. I really am. And I know right now we like to blame everything on Trump. We like to blame everything on Trump that's happened the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But he wasn't in power then. He wasn't there. Sorry, I don't mean to be going off on a rant here, but
no. But to your point, the whole issue of crime and public disorder, big issue in the country this year, all over the news. Every night, all over the news. This was the year when one of the top stories of the year was, do we need a castle law in Canada or a stand your ground law in Canada? You remember we talked about that story out of Lindsay, Ontario, where the man was charged after he stabbed the other man, broke into his apartment late at night. There's really been no update on that. So some sharp reporter might want to get an update on that. Look, I've been doing talk radio for more than 25 years, a lot of open line shows. In all of those years, I don't think we've ever had the kind of discussions this year or heard the genuine desire from so many people expressing the desire to have laws changed that would allow people to actually arm themselves because they don't feel safe in their neighborhoods, that their neighborhoods are becoming more dangerous any more than this year. It's been a real thing.
Can I ask you a question to that, Rob?
Yeah.
So why is Bill C-9 more of a push than bail reform? Why is that being pushed more forward than the bail reform or any additions to the crime changes that, for the most part, most Canadians agree upon, that these things need to be changed? Why is that at the forefront? Well, like the Liberals have been empowered
I
here
think
now.
I think they wanted to. Well, I think it was just kind of how the sausage was made in Ottawa. They knew that they needed support in Quebec for something that's very popular in Quebec, which was the amendment to the hate crime laws to throw out the religious exemption for hate crime laws, and they didn't want to lose that support and see Bill 9 go down the tubes without support from the Bloc. I think that's what it was, if you're asking me.
Okay.
Gotta go. Thank you. Yeah, gotta stop here, though, Ernie. Good to hear from you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Be right back with more of your calls. Describe Canada, our talkback topic today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Describe Canada in just a few words. Describe Canada. Jonathan up next on Talkback. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, Rob. Thank you for taking my call. How are you?
You're welcome. Very good. Thank you. What's your opinion?
In a short word, I think we are in a good position. This is a turning point in our country. There is hope. Hope, though. Always hope in Canada because of the foundations being laid down by our forefathers, and there is hope. It's not hopeless. It's just being mismanaged, especially those 10 years of previous government. Although the present government is the same party, but right now, with the leadership of Prime Minister Carney, I believe we have a hope. Well, we have. But the thing is, we are now in a point where that we need to unite. We need to really work hard and fixing the mess the previous government did, and then plus all the troubles around globally. We need to unite provinces, federal government, everybody, because that's the only way we can move forward and maintain and get back and maintain the quality of life that most of Canadians are known for. But it's not easy. We need to work hard.
But you think the election of Prime Minister Carney was a turning point that gives you hope?
Yes, yes. Because everything is there. If we compare Canada to a different country, Canada has everything you need to succeed in life. If you really, really want to work hard and do better, it's there. Myself is the one example. I came to this country for just 2 suitcases and a $500 on my pocket. And look, I've been out of job during COVID, but right now I have a company. But I work hard.
Good for you.
I really work hard, do some sacrifices. Life is not easy. If you want success, you need to work hard. That's the ingredients there. Keep doing. Have faith. Because other outside of your control, you can no longer control it. You can only hope, do better, and do what you can do.
Very good words. Thank you for your time today, Jonathan, and for your call and for those sentiments. It's going to be the last word today. Thank you so much. We will be back tomorrow. Brand new topic and more of your calls. And always the latest breaking news. That's coming up right now. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This has been Talkback, and this is News Radio.